It's a beautiful day here in Dallas as President and Mrs. Kennedy arrive. Hello, Mr. President. Here's that information about the assassination attempt you wanted from the police. This should give you a few leads for your own investigation. That was a close call you had last week. You had the family really scared. Thank God you're okay.
Thanks, Bobby. Whoever did this isn't going to get away with it. Not if I can help it.
We'll find him. I'm sure of it. You'll probably want to look through that file for a while, so I'll leave you alone.
I'll speak with you later.
Begin interview with Mrs. Kenneth Dalton. Now, Mrs. Dalton, tell us what you saw in Dealey Plaza.
Yes, well, I heard those terrible shots ring out. There seemed to be 3 or 4 shots. And as I heard the shots, I looked up at the county records building because that's where the noise was coming from. When I looked up, I saw someone or something moving in the corner window of the 5th floor. I couldn't make anything out except that there was movement. That's all I know.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Dalton. End interview with Mrs. Kenneth Dalton. Begin interview with Elliot Balder. Now, Mr. Balder, tell us what you know about the assassination attempt.
Am I on? Okay. I know that the shots came from the county records building. My wife, my brother, and I were standing right in front of that building when the shots were fired. I'm sure they came from that building because the sound of the shots was right above us. I wish I could tell you more, but my wife and I had just come up from Austin the day before, and we were too overtaken by the whole place and all the excitement to notice anything specific.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Balder. End interview with Elliot Balder. Begin interview with Jason Alvarado. Now, Mr. Alvarado, tell us what you saw on November 22nd. I saw a rifle coming out of the window on the 5th floor of the county records building. Did you see the person who had the gun? No, I didn't. That's strange to see, but I just saw the rifle, and I heard the shots. It was just terrible. That's all we need now. Thank you for your time, Mr. Alvarado. End interview with Jason Alvarado. Begin interview with Sarah Kavanaugh. Now, Miss Kavanaugh, just tell us now what you told us before.
Okay. Well, I guess I should start by saying that I work in the county records building. I'm a clerk there. Anyway, the week before the president came to Dallas, a man came to my desk and asked for a copy of the blueprints for the building, so I gave them to him. I really didn't think too much of it until I heard that the shots had been fired from the records building. I think he may be the man responsible.
Can you tell us what he looked like?
He was tall, over 6 feet, and he had a sandy brown hair. And I think he had a pretty big nose. That's all I remember.
Thank you for your time, Miss Kavanaugh. End interview with Sarah Kavanaugh.
Hello, Miss Parson. This is Kevin Brudeman with the Dallas Police. I have a few questions for you about November 22nd.
Yeah, like what?
Where were you when the shots were fired at the president?
Do you want the truth or the story Bob made me tell you guys before?
Let's try the truth.
Bob Rafkin and I were at a motel. We used to go to a motel every Friday at lunch, if you know what I mean. Anyway, when we got back to work, and Bob found out what happened in his office, he just flipped. He starts making up stories about where we were, calling friends to vouch for us, yelling about his wife and what she would say if she found out about us. He fell apart. Then that toad breaks off our relationship and fires me. Now I haven't got a job or a man, if you could call Bob Rafkin a man. Look, am I going to get into trouble for lying to the police? I only did it because he made me. Then he drops me.
I think that's absolutely terrible, Miss Pawson. Is there anything you can tell me that might aid in the investigation?
No. Like I said, I was in a motel room at the time of the shooting.
Thank you for your time, Miss Pawson. Goodbye.
Let's get started.
Since you've brought it up, Mr. President, I'd like to say that personally, I don't understand why this administration is going out on a limb for a civil rights bill that has no chance of passing. I think we should go back to our original strategy, prosecuting civil rights violators and registering the Southern Negro voter.
We've tried that, Paul, and it doesn't work. We can't solve this problem one lawsuit at a time. We need legislation. And this bill can pass. We had a great reaction after the March on Washington in August. If we can continue creating positive displays of the Negro protest, we can get this bill through Congress.
Aren't you forgetting that we also have to convince a number of congressmen and senators to vote for this bill?
I haven't forgotten that, Paul. I'm just confident that we can accomplish that task as well.
Where do we stand on the civil rights bill now?
There are 7 titles in this bill. The most controversial is Title II, the Public Accommodation section. Requiring Southerners to desegregate their public restaurants and hotels won't be easy. Southerners argue that this is a state issue. They don't want the federal government mandating a change in their traditions.
Title III is also a problem. It allows the Attorney General to bring lawsuits against school districts that are not integrated. Unfortunately, most Southern whites oppose integrated schools, so this is going to be a tough title to pass as well.
Do you think we're going to see an escalation in the violence that accompanies some of the protests?
I hope not, Mr. President, but it's hard to say. Violent protests only make it more difficult for us to get this bill passed. Unfortunately, I've heard talk that some northern activists are becoming disillusioned with the peaceful protest leaders and are turning to the more radical leaders like Malcolm X and the Black Muslims.
Why do they want to get violent? It only leads to more animosity between the races.
Look at it this way, Paul. If you got washed down the street with a high-powered hose for protesting against conditions that you considered to be unjust, wouldn't you become a little angry? Wouldn't you seek a little retribution?
We've all seen footage of police with fire hoses and attack dogs, Sam, and
Let's get back to the point, guys. Mr. President, we're trying to keep the violence on both sides to an absolute minimum. I think that's in everyone's best interest.
That's all the information I'll need for now, gentlemen. Thank you for the update. Hello, Mr. Rafkin? This is Kevin Brudeman with the Dallas Police. I have a few questions for you about November 22nd.
Look, you guys have got to stop calling me. I've told you everything I know. I was with my friends in Dealey Plaza watching the motorcade. I have no idea if someone was in my office while I was out. Please leave me alone. Goodbye.
Hello? Mr. Alvarado? This is Jack Kennedy.
Yeah, right. And I'm Herbert Hoover.
Really, Mr. Alvarado, I'm Jack Kennedy. I know that you've spoken with the police about what you saw in Dealey Plaza, and I want to ask you a couple of questions myself. May I ask you a few questions?
Of course you can ask me questions. As many questions as you like. And I'm sorry about that Hoover crack. I'm just not used to being called by the president.
Don't worry about it, Mr. Alvarado. Most people react the same way to my calls. Now, about Dealey Plaza. What did you see?
I saw a rifle coming out of the window on the 5th floor of the county records building.
If you, don't mind my asking, why were you looking at the records building?
I was looking over there because my daughter's balloon had gotten away from her, and I was watching it fly away. Well, that's when I saw the rifle and I heard the shots.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Alvarado. Goodbye.
Hello?
Hello, Miss Kavanaugh? This is Jack Kennedy.
Is this some kind of joke?
I'm not joking, Miss Kavanaugh. I'm really Jack Kennedy. I just want to ask you a few questions about the shooting. Would you mind talking with me?
Are you kidding? I'd love to talk with you. And you can call me Sarah. What would you like to know?
What do you know about the assassination attempt, Sarah?
Well, gee, the week before you came to Dallas, a man came into the county records office where I work and asked for a copy of the blueprints for the building. He seemed a little weird, but I gave them to him and he left.
Did he tell you his name?
No, he didn't. I really don't have any information about him. I'm sorry.
Is there anything you can tell me that you didn't tell the police?
Actually, I do remember one thing about him that I forgot when I was talking to the police, but it's kind of silly. The guy had really long eyelashes. I mean, really long. They looked fake, they were so long. I guess that's not exactly what you were looking for.
Not exactly, but I do appreciate your time. Thank you, Sarah. Goodbye.
Hello?
Hello, Mrs. Dalton? This is Jack Kennedy.
Billy, is that you? That's just not funny.
No, ma'am. This isn't Billy. I'm really Jack Kennedy. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about what you saw in, Dealey Plaza. Would you mind talking with me, ma'am?
Oh my goodness! It's really you? I can't believe I'm talking to the President of the United States. Oh, I've got to tell Charlene.
Mrs. Dalton, please don't tell Charlene. In fact, don't tell anyone. You see, it's very important that no one know that I've called you. Can I count on you to keep my secret?
Of course, Mr. President. You can always count on me.
Thank you, Mrs. Dalton. Now, let me get to the reason I called. Is there anything you can tell me about the attempt on my life that you didn't tell the police?
Well, no. I told the police everything I know. I'm sorry. I wish I could be of more help to you.
That's all right, ma'am. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. Hello, Elliot Balder. This is Jack Kennedy.
Did you say Jack Kennedy? The Jack Kennedy?
Yes, Mr. Balder. This is the Jack Kennedy. I'd like to hear what you know about the shooting.
Well, Mr. President, my wife and I were in town visiting my brother, so we went to see you and your lovely wife while you were in Dallas. We were standing right in front of the county records building when the shots were fired. I'm sure they came from that building because the sound of the shots was right above us.
Is there anything else you can tell me?
I'm sorry, sir. I wish there were more to tell. It was just such a mass of confusion. Being from out of town and all, everything was so unfamiliar. I just don't remember much after the shots were fired. I'm sorry.
Did you see anything unusual before you heard the shots?
Like I said, Mr. President, being from out of town, everything was unusual. But I didn't see anything that would help the investigation.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Balder. Goodbye.
This is Tompkins.
Hello, Detective Tompkins? This is Jack Kennedy.
Hello, Mr. President. How can I help you?
I received the FBI folder on the investigation, and I was wondering if you could give me any more information.
I'm afraid that everything we know at this time is in that folder, sir. But we are constantly working to get more information.
Will you let me know if you learn anything new?
Of course, sir. The minute we learn anything new, we'll let you know.
Thank you for your time, Detective.
Mr. President, this just arrived for you. I would have had it processed with your other mail, but it's labeled confidential, so I figured I would show it to you first.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Have a good afternoon.
Agency, may I help you?
May I speak with Bill Strachan, please?
I'm sorry. He's unable to come to the phone. He's dead.
Oh, I'm, very sorry to hear that. Who am I speaking with?
This is Sylvia Hall. I was Mr. Strachan's secretary.
Maybe you can help me, Miss Hall. Is it Miss or, Mrs.?
Miss, but you can call me Sylvia. And I don't know how much I can help you. I only started working here a few weeks ago.
I understand. Just do your best. First, how did Mr. Strachan die?
He was shot. He was walking out of the building and someone just shot him. I can't believe it. They haven't caught the guy who did it either, but the police don't think it was a random killing.
Oh, that's awful. Do they have any suspects?
No, not even one.
Sylvia, do you know anything about a juggernaut or something called the camel?
No, I've never heard of them before. Sorry.
That's okay. Did, Mr. Strachan mention anything about the, Kennedy assassination attempt?
No, he didn't. these questions anyway? Who is this?
I'm a reporter covering the Kennedy shooting.
Well, I don't know anything about it.
Mr. President, we need to discuss the civil rights legislation. Right now, the legislation that you proposed back in June is stuck in the House Rules Committee. If we don't do something, the bill could die in that committee.
Of course, I don't want that to happen, Bobby. What do you recommend?
Since Gilbert Ornelas, the chairman of the committee, won't even hold hearings on the bill, I think you have no choice but to work around him. That means a petition to bypass the rules panel. If a majority of the House votes for the petition, we can get that bill out of committee and onto the floor for a vote.
If I may interject, Mr. President, I don't think that the discharge petition is the proper way to proceed on this matter. There are quite a few members of the House who object to bypassing committees, so you might experience difficulty with a discharge petition. I would encourage you to use your persuasive talents to influence Congressman Ornelas to hold hearings on the bill. But of course, the decision is yours.
I think I can persuade Gilbert Ornelas to hold the necessary hearings on this bill. Arthur, can you set up a time for me to speak with him?
I'd be happy to, Mr. President.
Good. Now, if there's nothing else to discuss, I'd say that this meeting is adjourned. Let's get started, gentlemen. Jim, I want your read on the situation in Vietnam.
As you know, sir, the political situation is volatile. Diem's fall last month destabilized an already shaky situation. General Minh, the current president, appears uninterested in leading the country. We've heard rumors of another coup. Ambassador Reams believes the current regime could fall as early as January.
Yes, I'm aware of the uncertainty. How would you characterize the overall U.S. effort toward turning back the communists, General?
Not good, sir. The 16,000 advisors we have in place can't do much. They are limited to training the South Vietnamese army. To complicate matters, the villages are proving to be a formidable supply line for the communists. While the country's peasants accept our help, they apparently side with the communists by providing food, shelter, and munitions.
We can't fight the whole damn country. We need the peasants on our side. What can we do? Are there any suggestions?
How about a propaganda blitz citing atrocities perpetrated on the Vietnamese people by the communists? Rumors circulated by our agents in the field, backed up by graphic leaflets, could do the trick.
Set it up, Jim. Half of this war is for the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese.
The only way to combat such a diffused network is with a whole lot of men beating the bushes out in the countryside. If If we're going to win this thing, it's going to have to go on the ground and in a big way. Our current role as advisors is next to useless.
Tom, I know how you feel. Your boys are over there with their hands tied behind their backs. But the war for democracy in Vietnam is not the only war we're fighting. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Now, how close are we to winning this thing?
If things turn around a bit, we could be victorious in 6 to 12 months. The key is control of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, an ancient north-south supply route used by traders for centuries. The trail is really nothing more than a network of primitive paths through some of the densest jungle in the world.
I hope you're right, Paul. The last thing we want is to have our boys crawling around in the jungle. Thanks for the briefing, gentlemen. Keep me posted on new developments. Gentlemen.
There's only one Democrat willing to run against you, Mr. President. It's Andrew Sharp, the senator from Georgia. He's pretty conservative for a Democrat, and as you can imagine, he's against the Civil Rights Bill.
That's putting it mildly, Sam. Sharp's a staunch segregationist, sir. He does support entitlement programs for the needy, though. His biggest support comes from the southern states.
What are Sharp's views on Vietnam?
He claims that he would be more aggressive in dealing with the communist forces in Vietnam. I think he'd escalate our efforts over there.
I don't think he's much to worry about. Now, on the Republican side, there are 3 men and 1 woman that I believe will announce their candidacies very soon. They are James Decker, Glenn Hansen, Oliver Buckman, and Mary Misson.
I think your biggest threat will be from Glenn Hansen. He's the governor of Pennsylvania and a progressive Republican. Hansen thinks the government should be less involved in private business. He endorses the Civil Rights Bill, and as for Vietnam, he supports our position as advisors over there.
Personally, I think James Decker, the Colorado senator, could be a problem. The guy's got a strong following among the very conservative members of his party.
What are Decker's views on the basic issues?
He wants the government to stop interfering with private business, and he's against the Civil Rights Bill because he feels the state should deal with the issue themselves. As for Vietnam, I believe he'd go to combat.
Tell me about the other candidates.
Oliver Buckman, the senator from Illinois, is very similar to Glenn Hansen. Like Hansen, Buckman doesn't like the government to be involved in private business any more than it has to. He supports the Civil Rights Bill, and he supports the U.S.'s current position in Vietnam.
Buckman's problem is that he doesn't have the popular support that Hansen has. I don't think Buckman's going to be in this race for long.
I agree with Fred. Buckman doesn't have the political clout to win the Republican nomination. He'll probably drop out early.
The 4th Republican contender is Senator Mary Misson from Rhode Island. She's a self-proclaimed moderate Republican who supports the Civil Rights Bill and is willing to vote for legislation that affects private enterprise. She's got a lot of support in New England and the northern industrial states.
There's one candidate you won't have to worry about. This country is definitely not ready to accept a woman as president. So that's it for the candidates, Mr. President. Decker, Hansen, Buckman, and Misson for the Republicans, and you and Sharp for the Democrats.
Another thing we need to discuss, Mr. President, is your campaign slogan. I've met with the advertising agency and they've come up with 4 choices. I need you to decide which one you want. The first one is all the way with JFK. Second, 4 more in 64. Third, Kennedy. Again. And finally, let's keep the country moving.
I like that last one, because it plays off your slogan from the last election. Let's get the country moving again. That was very effective.
That's a good point, Sam. Any other opinions?
4 more in 64 sounds too impersonal. I prefer Kennedy again.
I agree. I think Kennedy, again, is excellent. It's simple and straightforward. Which one do you like, sir?
I like let's keep the country moving. That's the one we should go with.
I couldn't agree more, sir. I'll let the advertising agency know of your decision.
Thank you, Fred. Now that that's settled, I'd say that this meeting is adjourned.
I just stopped by to invite you and Jackie out to lunch next week. I couldn't help but notice that confidential envelope on your desk. Is there anything in there I should know about?
It's got some information about the assassination attempt.
Can I look at it?
Sure. I'll have a copy made for you on your way out.
Okay. I'll go back to my office and look into it.
That would be great. Thanks.
No trouble. I'll call you later about lunch.
All right.
Mr. President, there are indications that the Communists have stepped up the flow of insurgents down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Intelligence also shows increased construction activity on the trail, indicating a move to improve transportation capabilities. I would advise preemptory airstrikes at targets along the trail.
Paul, didn't you tell me that the trail was just a network of old footpaths?
Yes, I did, sir.
Then what's going on? I want answers I can count on.
I'm sorry, sir, but we've just processed new recon photos that indicate far more activity on the trail than even a week ago.
I see. Please go on.
Well, sir, the photos show concentrated construction at 7 points along the trail. Bunkers that could be anti-aircraft emplacements and what appear to be bridge pylons just west of Dak To and Kam Duk.
Paul, aren't the South Vietnamese capable of making the airstrikes?
Unfortunately, no. We feel that the terrain and jungle cover would require a more surgical strike than anything the Vietnamese are currently capable of.
Could the South Vietnamese be trained to handle the mission, Paul?
Certainly they could, sir. However, time is short, and the political situation has distracted the high-level officers in Saigon.
And if we wait?
Every day we hesitate means more munitions and personnel reaching South Vietnam. If the Communists get a jump on hiding construction on the trail, it would be more difficult to ferret them out later.
So what we're talking here is involvement of U.S. combat troops in Vietnam?
Yes, sir. In a limited capacity.
Are there any other comments?
I believe a change in our role in Vietnam from advisory to combat would be premature at this point, sir. The move would be interpreted by the Communists as a provocation. They will argue that the action validates their presence there.
And it would be tough to sell to the people, Mr. President. We've been telling them all along we're there to train, not fight.
I say wait, Mr. President. Any combat action right now will hurt your chances for re-election.
The way I see it, doing nothing while the Communists march on South Vietnam will kill your chances for re-election. What do you want to do?
For now, we'll remain in an advisory capacity.
All right, sir.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Mr. President, Congressman Ornelas is on line 1.
Gilbert, this is Jack Kennedy.
Hello, Mr. President. What can I do for you?
Gilbert, I'd like you to hold hearings on the Civil Rights Bill.
I believe that it is my prerogative as chairman of the committee to hold hearings as I see fit, Mr. President.
That is true, Gilbert, but I would consider it a personal favor if you would just do this. What do you say?
As a personal favor to you, Mr. President, I will schedule a hearing at my earliest convenience.
Thank you, Gilbert. I do appreciate that. Goodbye.
Hello, Mr. President. I've got a few things I'd like to discuss with you about your re-election campaign. I've assembled some figures for you to use to make some financial decisions. They are in that folder on your desk.
All right, Ross. Where should we start?
You've got $1 million in your war chest. Campaign contributions are a little low right now, but that's only because you haven't done much campaigning yet. As the season wears on, your contributions will increase, especially if you participate in fundraising events.
Okay. What do I need to decide right now?
First, you need to determine how much money you want to allocate to advertising. Considering how far away the election is, you probably don't want to allocate very much right now. The second issue is whether you'd like to do some preliminary polling on the other candidates. If you want polling information, you'll need to allocate some funds for that as well. And finally, you need to okay the amount allocated for security. If that figure is unacceptable to you, feel free to adjust it.
I've made my decisions, Ross. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm looking forward to a very successful campaign, and on my way out I'll schedule a meeting through your secretary to discuss campaign touring with you.
I researched the information in that confidential folder from Strachan. Here's what I found out. How's everything else on the investigation going?
Fine. I think I'm making some progress.
Great. I'm as interested in finding out who did this as you are. I've got a meeting in half an hour. I've got to go.
Mr. President, there's a crisis in Panama. You're wanted in the Situation Room right away.
Thanks, Sean. I'm on my way.
Mr. President, there's an urgent matter that requires your attention. We have a crisis situation on our hands in Panama. There's been rioting near the Canal Zone, and it took the efforts of American soldiers to restore order. Apparently, the whole thing was set off when some American students living in the Canal Zone raised our flag at their high school. This was in direct opposition to your agreement with President Herdy of Panama that the Stars and Stripes not be flown without the Panamanian flag right next to it.
As you know, sir, the right of Panama to fly her flag in the zone has been a sensitive subject for some time now. So when those students flew the American flag without Panama's flag, Panamanian students protested. They entered the Canal Zone carrying their country's flag and raised it next to our flag. After the Canal Zone police directed the students back to Panama City, a rumor started that their flag was trampled, causing a riot to break out. Angry Panamanians invaded the Canal Zone. The latest reports indicate that 6 people have died and that over 70 people have been injured. Now, Panama has severed relations with the United States.
I can't believe this. I entered into that agreement with Herdia just last year, and there's already trouble. Then again, what should I expect? We've had trouble over the Canal Zone for the past 30 years.
That's exactly right, Mr. President. The Panamanians resent us because of our sovereignty over the Canal Zone, and because they don't think we pay them enough annually for using the canal. This flag issue is just one more on their list of complaints about the United States.
What do you suggest that I do about this riot, gentlemen?
The way I see it, Mr. President, you have 2 choices. Either you apologize to the Panamanians for the problem and hope that smooths the whole thing over and they forget about it, or you agree to negotiate a new treaty with Herdia that would be more favorable to Panama.
Now hold on there, Paul. The treaty between Panama and the U.S. has already been renegotiated twice since its original signing in 1903. The hell, we just renegotiated the thing 8 years ago. What's the point of signing a contract if you don't stick to it? I say forget 'em. If they want to cut off diplomatic relations, then we should do the same. Let's get our senior officer at the U.S. Embassy out of Panama.
Jim, you know as well as I do that the canal is crucial to us. We use it as a shortcut between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. We needed that canal during World War II and the Korean War, and it was indispensable during the Cuban Missile Crisis. There are even supplies going through the canal right now to help the effort in Vietnam. We can't just pull out of Panama.
Besides, the communists are just waiting for a chance to get in there and take over the canal. Then where would we be? Mr. President, I think you should agree to discuss a new treaty with Panama. Don't make any promises that there will be a new treaty, just agree to discuss the possibility. That should stem the rioting and hopefully set us on a smooth course again. What do you think?
I think you've got an excellent point, Tom. I don't want to guarantee a new treaty, but I'd be willing to discuss the idea if it would end the rioting.
I'll have that message relayed to President Herdia through the proper channels.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you all, gentlemen. I appreciate your rapid assessment of the situation. I hope we can resolve this whole thing quickly.
We'll keep you updated, Mr. President.
Good. That will be all.
Mr. President, we're experiencing some difficulties with Panama over your decision to discuss a new treaty. It seems that they want assurances from us that a new treaty will be negotiated before they'll come to the bargaining table.
Jim's right, sir. President Herdia has issued a statement requiring a full commitment from the U.S. before he will even discuss this with you. I think he's serious, too. This could drag on forever if we stick with the position of just discussing a new treaty. I think you should give Herdia the commitment he's looking for.
I have to disagree with Paul on this one, Mr. President. Herdia is just trying to see how far he can push us. I don't think we should give in to his demands. I think you should hold out until Herdia comes around. What would you like to do, sir?
I don't want this to go on any longer than it has to. I'll commit to negotiating a new treaty with Panama.
I'll see to it that President Herdia is informed of your decision, Mr. President.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you all for your time.
Mr. President, Senator Edwards is here to see you.
Hello, Mr. President. Thanks for seeing me on such short notice.
Of course, Josephine. What can I do for you?
I just wanted to inform you of what we on Capitol Hill think of your recent decision on Vietnam policy.
Oh? Well, you know I like to keep in touch with the mood on the Hill. Fire away.
Most of us agree that taking a moderate course is the way to go, and we are behind your decision to remain in an advisory capacity in South Vietnam. It allows us to control the situation without risking American lives.
Yes, that's our intent. We believe we can show the South Vietnamese how to defend themselves so they can fight off the communists.
How long do you think our involvement will last?
As long as we continue to get congressional support, it shouldn't take too long.
Good to hear, sir. Well, let me get out of your hair. Thanks again for your time.
All right, Josephine. Have a good day.
To negotiate a new treaty with Panama. The American people are furious. They see it as caving in, like you're letting Panama push us around.
Jim's right, Mr. President. Congress isn't too pleased either. A majority of the House and Senate is against a new treaty.
I've already agreed to negotiate a new treaty. Are you asking me to break that promise?
I'm not asking you to break a promise, sir, but perhaps your original agreement could be construed as only a promise to discuss a new treaty, not a promise to definitely create one. Just like what Tom suggested the first time we discussed this issue.
Yes, I did say that, Paul, but that was before any promises had been made. It's my opinion, Mr. President, that now that you have agreed to a new treaty, that breaking such a promise would be unwise. What would you like to do?
I think you're right, Tom. I've agreed to negotiate a new treaty, and I don't want to go back on my word.
I'll see to it that the proper authorities are notified.
Thank you, Tom. That will be all, gentlemen.
Mr. President, Congressman Ornelas has just announced that he is going to hold hearings on the civil rights legislation beginning in 2 weeks. The Attorney General called and said to tell you that whatever you said to the old man must have worked. Congratulations, sir.
That's great news. Thank you for the update, Sean.
Hello, sir. Where to today?
The FBI building.
Certainly, sir.
Hello, Mr. President. What brings you this way?
Hello, Catherine. You're looking lovely today. Just stopping by to speak with the director.
Of course, sir. Go right in.
Thanks, Catherine. You're a doll.
Hello, Mr. President. How are you today?
Fine. What's on the agenda today?
I've been arranging your travel itinerary for the campaign. I know that you need time to fully recuperate, so I haven't planned anything until February. And from there, I scheduled through the middle of April.
What have you come up with?
The itinerary is in the folder on your desk. I've tended to concentrate on states with the most electoral votes. Like you said in the last election, you want to be where the votes are. That's especially true right before a primary. So I've tried to schedule stops in states with critical primaries as well.
What do I need to do?
Well, you need to decide what will happen in each state. You can either give a speech or hold a fundraiser. If you choose to give a speech, just pick out a topic you want to discuss in that state.
I've made my decisions. Thank you for your time, Ross.
Anytime, Mr. President. I'll see you later.
Hello, sir. Where to today?
The FBI building.
Certainly, sir.
Yes, Mr. President.
I'd like to see the director.
Go right.
Mr. President, what a surprise. What can I do for you?
Just thought I'd come by to see how everything is going here.
Everything's running smoothly.
Well, I don't want to keep you from what you're doing, so I'll be on my way. Goodbye.
Thanks for stopping by, Mr. President.
Where would you like to go, Mr. President?
The White House.
At your service, sir.
Yes, Paul, what is it?
Sir, we have preliminary reports of a terrorist bombing in Saigon, a stadium used exclusively by U.S. servicemen and their families.
Go on, Paul.
Yes, sir. The two devices, probably U.S.-made aerial fragmentation grenades, exploded separately under the bleachers during a softball game.
Casualties?
Yes, sir. 2 servicemen dead and another 20 injured, 3 in serious condition.
Any indication who may have set it up?
Sir, we have reason to believe communist terrorists may have been behind it.
What makes you think so, Jim?
The Viet Cong raided a supply depot at Bien Ho Saturday. Among the munitions taken were several cases of these fragmentation bombs.
Any idea how they were placed in the stadium?
Although used exclusively by U.S. military personnel, Pershing Stadium is not technically a part of the military apparatus there, and as such is not secured.
What can we do?
I say hit 'em hard, sir. We have solid evidence of a Red-controlled village just over the Cambodian border north of Tay Ninh. Our reconnaissance shows what we believe to be a munitions stockpile there.
Given a few days, we could work a similar attack with operatives in Hanoi, sir, although it may jeopardize our work there. Also, there is a possibility we could locate the culprits through our network. They are undoubtedly fleeing into the countryside as we speak.
Or we could do nothing.
Paul, have Fred prepare a statement denouncing the action as a cowardly attempt to sway U.S. resolve.
I'll get right on it, sir. The papers will have it by press time tonight.
Good. This meeting is adjourned.
Hello, sir. Where to today?
The FBI building.
Certainly, sir.
Hello, Mr. President. Back again?
Hello, Catherine. I've got to keep my eye on you.
I'm afraid he's not in right now, Mr. President.
Then I'll just wait for him in his office.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I'm not supposed to let anyone into the director's office when he isn't in.
Catherine, I'm sure you could let the President of the United States into his office. You can trust me.
I guess you're right. Go ahead.
would you like to go, Mr. President?
The White House.
At your service, sir.
I've managed to arrange your schedule so that you can go to Dallas. You'll be able to do some real investigating there. Do you want to go?
Absolutely. Great job, Bobby.
Thanks. Well, I've got to get back to work. I'll speak with you later.
Hello, gentlemen.
Sir, I'd like to start, if I may. I think we need to reconsider the decision to remain advisory in Vietnam.
Paul, you know my position. It's always easier to get into a war than to get out of one. I see no reason to rush headlong into a conflict.
Of course, sir. But if we are to stop the communists in Vietnam, it is imperative we step up support for the South Vietnamese.
Go on, Paul.
The communists are continuing their build-up on the Ho Chi Minh Trail and have also stepped up activity in Cambodia and Laos. Munitions and men are literally pouring into South Vietnam down the Mekong River.
I see. Can you give me some more details?
We believe Cambodia and Laos not only allow arms shipments through their countries, but are involved directly in supply. Every day we do nothing, they grow bolder. We must act.
So you advocate increased military spending for Vietnam and combat roles for our troops. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes, sir, it is.
Mr. President, there is another option.
Let's hear it, Bobby.
I wonder if a communist takeover can be resisted with this or any other government in Saigon. Maybe it's time to consider whether our presence in Vietnam really serves any purpose, and if so, if those goals are attainable through military action.
Bobby, are you suggesting we consider a pullout?
Yes, that is precisely what I am suggesting. We don't have the support of the vast majority of the Vietnamese people themselves, not to mention wavering support here at home.
This is ludicrous. Do you have any idea what we would be giving up with a pullout?
Yes, we would give up on this undeclared war before it becomes official. We would bring those men home alive.
I agree, sir. I think a phased pullout, something between 6 months and a year, is worth serious consideration.
I can't believe what I'm hearing.
What do you want to do, Mr. President?
Paul, you failed to show me anything new that could warrant a change in roles. We're sticking with our advisory role. Now, this meeting is adjourned.
Hello, Mr. President. We need to review the memorandum I placed in the file on your desk.
Okay, Eric. What's it about?
As per your recent policy decision, it sets the number of advisors we will deploy in Vietnam. You can approve the number recommended in the memo, or you can adjust the number to your liking.
There it is, Eric. Put it through.
I'll do it, sir. Thanks for your time.
Hello, Mr. President.
The FCC requires that every candidate be given equal time to present his views. And I mean every candidate, including some kook who advocates disbanding the entire government. The TV stations just can't afford it.
And the only reason you could debate Mr. Nixon in 1960 was because the FCC rules were suspended as an experiment. It doesn't look like that will happen again.
I wouldn't have won without those debates.
Actually, the whole thing works in your favor, Mr. President. In '60, you were running against the Vice President. He was much more well-known than you were. Sharing a stage with him made you appear as equals. Now you don't want to allow anyone to appear equal with you.
Fred's right. You were in the driver's seat for this election. Why allow anyone to appear equal to the president? Besides, what if you were asked about something that could compromise the security of the United States? You'd be forced to lie. Any way you look at it, this works in your favor.
All right. You've convinced me. Let's move on.
That's all we need to discuss, sir.
Good. I'll see you all later.
Mr. President, I've got the latest public opinion numbers on the Vietnam issue.
Let's hear the good news, Carolyn.
It appears that most Americans are not that concerned with Vietnam, sir. Those that are following the situation feel that we are generally doing the right thing by keeping our boys off the battlefield.
So basically, if we keep a low profile, we should be all right for the election.
That's what it looks like at this point, sir.
You're doing a great job, Carolyn. Thanks for the report.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Mr. President, you need to determine your campaign position on raising taxes. Would you like some background on the issue?
Yes, Sam. I'd like some background before I make my decision.
I'd like to comment on the question of taxes, if I may, sir. As you know, the American people never like to hear that their taxes are going to be increased. I say no matter what you personally feel about the issue, you promise not to raise taxes. Otherwise, you'll never get re-elected.
Don't you think that's a little dishonest, Fred? It seems to me, sir, that if you know you have to raise taxes, then you should tell the people that. Why hide it?
You can't be idealistic when it comes to winning an election, Walter. I'm telling you, sir, the people do not want to hear that their taxes are going to go up if they re-elect you. That's the bottom line.
Hold on a minute. Can we at least discuss why taxes might be raised before we discuss whether I'll raise them or not?
There are a number of pressing urban and suburban concerns, Mr. President. For example, housing discrimination, water systems, and transportation. These all take money.
So the question is, do you want to change these problems? And if you do, how will you pay for them? By raising taxes or cutting spending in other areas? Let's start with the first part. Do you want to change some of the problems Sam listed?
Yes, Bobby. I think those are important issues. They need government attention.
Well then, how do you plan to pay for those changes? By raising taxes or cutting spending in other areas of the government?
I'd be willing to cut spending in other areas to effect those changes.
Well, that makes it easy, sir. You can honestly promise not to raise taxes.
Good. Then that's settled. My campaign position is that I won't raise taxes during my second term.
All right, Mr. President. That's all we needed to discuss.
Good. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Mr. President, a situation has developed off the coast of Florida that I think you should know about. 4 Cuban fishing boats have been found in our territorial waters, and we have reason to believe they may have been sent by Cuba's Premier Lopez. I view this as an act of aggression by Cuba. I think we should respond.
I agree with Tom. We've been here before with the missile crisis, and we found that it pays off to stand up to Lopez. I say we arrest the sailors on those 4 boats and see how Cuba reacts.
I understand your position. Are there any other comments about this situation?
Let's not make this into a big deal. Those boats may have just drifted off course. It was probably an accident.
I've got to agree with Paul on this one. I think we should just send them home. I've got too many other issues to deal with right now to let some fishing boats bother me.
I'll alert the Coast Guard of your decision, sir. They should have those boats on their way within a few hours.
Good. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
President, the situation with Cuba has escalated. Cuban Premier Lopez has cut off the water supply to our naval station at Guantanamo.
What did he do that for? Didn't those fishermen get sent back to Cuba without incident?
They certainly did, Mr. President. But the Cubans have hated our presence on that island for 60 years, ever since we signed the treaty to lease naval bases from them. We've got a perpetual lease on the land in their country, and they don't like it. Lopez wants us out of Cuba, and he's going to do anything to make that happen. I say to hell with them. We can get our own water.
What have you got in mind, Jim?
They've already implemented Rationing Plan Alpha on the base at Guantanamo. Alpha limits the use of water for personal reasons to 3 hours a day. Right there, that saves us 1.5 million gallons of water per day. We've got enough water on the base to last 12 days.
Besides, we can ship water in from places like Florida, Puerto Rico, Jamaica. We really should have a supply of water that's independent of Cuba anyway. You know we can't depend on Lopez.
That's the situation, Mr. President. We can't leave naval personnel and their families on the base without water. Either we give in to Lopez's threats and evacuate Guantanamo, or we work out our own water supply system and stay on the naval base. What would you like to do?
I won't give up the base on Guantanamo. So it looks like the only thing to do is create our own water supply.
I couldn't agree more, sir. Now, there's also the issue of the 2,500 Cubans who work on the base. As I'm sure you're aware, Cuba requires these workers to exchange the American dollars we pay them for pesos every night.
The point is, sir, Cuba is benefiting from our presence there, and at the same time they're hostile to us. What I think Paul is driving at is that we should require those workers to spend their money on the naval base and not in Cuba. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think we should do anything to further antagonize Lopez. Let's just go about our business on the base as usual.
Of course, Mr. President. That's all we have to discuss.
Excellent. I'll speak with you all later. Thank you.
Attention Air Force One passengers, we'll be landing at Dallas Love Field in approximately 10 minutes. The weather in Dallas is sunny and 68 degrees. We'll see you back on board tomorrow morning at 0800 hours.
The Dallas Police Headquarters.
Can I help you?
Yes, may I speak with the person in charge of investigating the Strachan murder?
Sure. His name is Kruger. Greg Kruger. Go right up those stairs.
Can I help you?
I'm looking for Greg Kruger.
He's right over there.
May I help you?
Yes. I understand that you are investigating the Strachan murder. Have you found out who did it?
No, we haven't solved that one yet.
Is there anything you can tell me about the case?
He was shot walking out of his office building. We think it was a professional job. High-powered rifle, one shot. The rifleman was an expert.
Have you got any suspects?
Not even one. Look, I've told you everything I know about the case.
Thanks for the information. Goodbye.
Where to?
The Juggernaut Saloon. Do you know where that is?
What'll you have?
Actually, I'm interested in finding a guy by the name of Frank Finn. You know him?
Yeah, I know him. But I haven't seen him for a while. It's kind of funny, you know. He used to come in here just about every day. Then one day I was in the middle of a conversation with him about how this PI comes in asking about some camel, and he up and walks out. Right in the middle of the conversation. Hadn't even finished his beer.
That PI. Was his name, Strachan?
I think so. I'm not really sure. Hey, is Finn in some kind of trouble?
I don't know. Is there anything else you can tell me about him?
Well, I'm not sure I should tell you this, but I do remember Finn talking with the guy a couple of months ago. I overheard them talking about killing the president. Of course, I thought they were kidding. Who wouldn't? You hear stuff like that all the time in Dallas. I never thought anyone would actually try to shoot the President of the United States.
Who was the guy that Finn was talking to?
He went by the name the Tin Man. Camels, Tin Men, this world's getting weird.
The Tin Man? You didn't get his real name? What did he look like?
No, he just said the Tin Man. I don't really remember what he looked like. Just a regular guy, I guess.
Thanks for the info.
Where to?
The Juggernaut Bicycle Shop, 303 Bayberry Street.
I'll be right with you. What can I do for you today?
I'm looking for Frank Finn. Is he an employee here?
Nope, he doesn't work here.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I own the place. If he were working here, I would have noticed.
Thanks anyway.
Where to?
Juggernauts Incorporated, 1400 Kings Highway.
Hello. Can I help you, sir?
I'm looking for Frank Finn. Is he an employee here?
Frank Finn? No, he's not employed here.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir. We only employ 34 people and I know them all. I'm sorry.
What does your company do?
We produce confectionaries. You know, pastries, cakes, cookies, that sort of thing.
Sounds delicious. Thanks for the information.
Where to?
4275 10th Avenue.
May I help you?
Yes, I'm looking for Bill Strachan's office.
Well, his office was down the hall, but I'm afraid he's been killed and the office has been closed.
Is there any way I can get in touch with someone from the office?
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about it.
Thanks anyway.
Where to?
Back to my hotel, please.
Hey, that guy in the coat and hat, that's gotta be him. I've been sitting in this lobby waiting for him for hours, and he thinks he can get past me with a coat and a hat? No chance.
Mr. President, I just wanted to keep you updated on the Guantanamo situation. Lopez has been trying to gain international support for Cuba. He wants to cancel the treaty that leases us the naval base. Lopez claims that we are using Guantanamo for spies and for provoking incidents with Cuba.
Like I've said all along, they want us off their land. Mr. President, I don't think you should give in to him. We have a valid treaty with Cuba, and Lopez will have to live with it.
The only problem is that the treaty's looking a little one-sided. The agreement only requires the U.S. to make a token rental payment of $2,000 in gold a year, and the Cuban government hasn't even accepted that since 1959. They want it known that they don't accept the lease agreement.
They may not be taking the $2,000 in gold, but they certainly take the $5 million in U.S. dollars that we pay the 2,500 Cubans who work on the base. They are financially gaining from our presence on Guantanamo, and the whole world knows it. I don't think Lopez can make a strong argument internationally against this treaty. What do you want to do, Mr. President? Force Lopez to stick to the treaty or give up the base?
I don't care what Lopez says to the world. We have a valid treaty with Cuba, and I'm not going to give up Guantanamo.
I couldn't agree more, Mr. President. We'll see to it that your views are made public.
Good. That will be all, gentlemen.
Hello, Mr. President.
Hold on there, Walter. I'm not so sure that the President needs to do anything. I think that once Congressman Ornelas agreed to hold hearings on the bill, he committed himself to making sure that there would be a House vote. Do you agree with me, Mr. President?
Yes, I think you're right, Paul. Congressman Ornelas wouldn't have bothered to schedule those hearings after such a long delay if he didn't intend to move forward on this bill.
That's exactly how I feel, sir. I don't think you need to try to convince people to do something they're already going to do.
I have to disagree. Sometimes it's better to play it safe. Will you at least consider talking to some congressmen?
All right, Fred, you've convinced me. Are there any suggestions?
Why don't you speak with Ornelas himself? I think he'd appreciate the recognition of his power over the situation.
I think you should speak with Congressman Jordan. He's got so many friends on the Hill, I'm sure he's got a good relationship with somebody on that committee.
There's always Mark Deering. He's young, but he's well respected. I think he could convince a few members of that committee to make sure that bill gets to the floor. What do you think, Mr. President?
I think I'll speak with Congressman Jordan.
I'll set that up for you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you all for your time, gentlemen. That will be all.
Sir, we have intelligence on the coup in Saigon.
Well, it's not like it was expected. Did Min survive?
Yes, sir. Apparently the takeover was bloodless. We understand he may be appointed titular leader under Khan.
And what about Khan? Has he made any overtures to the communists?
Not that we know of, sir. In fact, in a radio broadcast this morning, Khan explained the purge as necessary because Min's junta failed to make progress against the communists.
Well, that's positive. So where are we now?
We've still got good support for our presence in Vietnam. And Chris Reams said this morning that he believed the political situation should stabilize with Khan.
Did Reams know about the coup beforehand?
We believe he did, although he didn't appear to support or oppose it. Also, we have reports that one of our advisors, a Colonel Richard Haskins, accompanied Khan to Saigon from Hue 2 days ago.
Anything else?
Apparently, Haskins told a few associates that Khan was in Saigon for a dentist's appointment.
General?
I'll check it out, sir.
I don't like this. We've got Reams over there acting innocent when we know he's anything but innocent. And now we've got advisors making cover for coup leaders. Keep your people on it, Jim. I want to know what's going on.
The question is, sir, do we support the new regime or do nothing?
As long as we have a reasonable likelihood that Khan will oppose the communists, I don't think we have any choice but to support him. And issue a statement for the press.
Very well, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. President, Congressman Jordan is on his way in.
Good to see you today, Mr. President. I hear that you'd like to discuss the civil rights legislation.
That's right, Dan. I'd like you to put some pressure on the members of the House Rules Committee. As you can imagine, having introduced the Civil Rights Bill into Congress, I don't want to see it die in committee.
I'd be happy to do that for you, sir. By the way, I was wondering if you'd be willing to support a bill I've got in the House right now. It has to do with providing funds for highway improvement. What do you say?
I scratch your back, you scratch mine, huh? Okay, Dan, you've got my support on that legislation. Now just get that civil rights bill out of committee.
I'll certainly do my best, Mr. President. Goodbye.
Mr. President, I don't mean...
Walter, aren't you being a little dramatic?
I don't think so, Paul. I've spoken with both sides on this one, and neither one will budge. The management and the unions have been in negotiations for over 4 years without settling anything. Finally, the railroad said they were going to implement some of the changes without union consent, and the unions decided they had to strike.
When did the Illinois Central decide to strike? Why didn't I hear about this sooner?
They didn't want anyone to know because if the railroad knew of the pending strike, they would have gotten a temporary court order to stop it. This was a surprise strike.
Well, can't the railroad get a court order to make them go back to work?
They could, but they would just have to deal with more surprise strikes on other railroads. Both sides realized that something's got to happen now.
What are the main issues in the dispute?
Basically, the union demands include wage and work guarantees as well as overtime and holiday pay. The railroad management demands include a change in the wage structure and a lengthening of certain train runs.
Sounds like a typical union management dispute if you ask me.
You're right, Paul. The only problem is that this union management dispute could affect about 7 million workers across the country and cut our gross national product drastically.
I'm afraid that would reflect poorly on you, sir. You know how the press likes to relate every problem in the country to the president, especially in an election year. I think we need to do something quickly.
Well, are there any suggestions?
Why don't we go to Congress for emergency legislation to prohibit a strike?
They did that last summer, Bobby, and I don't think Congress wants to do it again. Besides, that's only a short-term solution. I think we should allow the strike to happen. Strikes are a great way to get collective bargaining started again.
I think the best thing to do is persuade the unions to postpone their strike and the railroads to postpone their changes for a short time. Then, if this administration gets involved, I'm sure we could help both sides come to some form of permanent agreement. I'd be happy to try that approach, Mr. President, but I think that the request for a postponement would be more persuasive coming from you.
Why don't you ask Vice President Johnson to speak to them? If anyone can be persuasive, it's him.
I still say let them strike. Loss of revenue and loss of wages is the most powerful form of persuasion there is.
What do you think, Mr. President? Do you want to go to Congress for emergency legislation, have someone from this administration get involved, or just let the strike happen?
I think we need to get involved. Let's ask for a postponement.
Would you like to do that yourself, sir? Or do you want Walter or Vice President Johnson to do the persuading?
I think Johnson should handle this one. You know what a bulldog he can be when it comes to getting people to do what he wants. This'll be perfect for him. He'll probably start waving the flag and talking about Mom and apple pie. It would be a joy to watch.
Sounds like it'll work, Mr. President.
Thanks for suggesting it, Paul. And Walter, thank you for bringing this issue to my attention. That'll be all for now, gentlemen. I'll speak with you later.
Hello, Mr. President.
Hello, Ross. What's today's meeting about?
It's time to schedule some more campaign speeches and fundraisers. We've already scheduled through mid-April, so we'll pick up there and plan through most of June.
That'll do it. Thanks for your time.
Goodbye, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Gordon Tompkins at the FBI is here to see you.
Hello, Mr. President. How are you today?
I'm fine, Gordon. Have you got some, good news for me?
I'm afraid not, sir. We have a lead on another attempt on your life. A guy by the name of, the Tin Man, has been in touch with an undercover agent. The Tin Man thinks this agent is an ex-con who can put him in touch with an assassin.
Who is this Tin Man?
We haven't found out exactly who he is yet, but we did trace a call from him to our undercover agent, and the call came from the White House, sir.
Are you sure? I can't believe that one of my own people would do this.
I understand how you feel, sir. We're looking into all the people who were working the night the call was made. Would you like a list of the employees?
Yes, I would like to see that list.
We'll get that list to you right away, sir. Goodbye.
Gordon Tompkins asked me to give you this. It's the list of all the employees who were working late last night. They're all here now. Do you want to speak to any of them?
Absolutely.
Fine. Who would you like to see first?
Send in Tate.
No problem.
You wanted to see me, sir?
Yes, Jennifer. I, understand you were working late last night.
Yes, I was, sir. I was finishing up a report on the latest findings about cigarettes leading to cancer.
Do you know anything about the Tin Man?
Tin Man? I'm afraid not, sir.
Thank you for your time, Jennifer. That will be all.
Yes, Mr. President. Would you like to see someone else?
Send in O'Casey.
Certainly, sir.
You wanted to see me, sir?
Why were you working late last night, Sean?
I was doing some work for the Secretary of Defense. He didn't give it to me until about 3 o'clock, and he needed it this morning at 8, so I had to stay late.
Do you know anything about the Tin Man?
Tin Man? Like in The Wizard of Oz? He was looking for a heart, I think.
Not the one in The Wizard of Oz. Do you know anyone who goes by the name the Tin Man?
I don't. I'm sorry, sir.
Thanks for stopping by, Sean. That's all I have to ask you.
Would you like to see someone else?
Send in Montero.
I'll send her right in.
Did you want to speak with me, Mr. President?
Carolyn, what kept you here so late last night?
I was doing some research on Hoffa and the Teamsters for the Attorney General.
Did you, see anyone else in the building?
Well, I ran into Mr. Nelson, your Chief of Staff, while I was getting a cup of coffee, but that's about it.
That's all I have to ask you, Carolyn. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Would you like to see someone else?
Send in Pilot.
All right.
Hello, Mr. President.
Can you, tell me what you were doing here so late last night?
I was working on a proposal for more funding for the Peace Corps.
Did you see anyone else in the building?
Well, I did run into Jennifer Tate. She was working late, too.
Thanks for your time, Eric. Keep up the good work on the Peace Corps.
Yes, sir. Would you like to see someone else?
No thanks.
Fine, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I've spoken with the Secret Service and they told me that they've heard some bad things about you campaigning in Texas. To be quite honest, they're afraid of another attempt on your life.
What are you suggesting, Ross? That I not campaign in Texas?
I'm not sure it's worth it, sir. What's the point of campaigning if you're going to get injured or worse, get killed? But it's up to you. What do you want to do?
I think you better cancel my engagements in Texas, Ross. I'm not taking any chances.
I think you've made the right decision, sir. I'll speak with you later.
Hi, Jack. Who's responsible for the shooting?
The Tin Man.
Is that his real name?
No, that's an alias.
What's his real name?
Samuel Nelson.
Why did he do it?
For love.
Is anyone else involved?
Yes. The Camel.
Is that his real name?
No, that's an alias.
What's his real name?
Frank Finn.
Why did he do it?
For money.
Is anyone else involved?
No.
Can you prove this, or is it mere suspicion?
I can prove this, Bobby.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you have a strong case. Would you like me to get an arrest warrant?
Definitely.
I'll get right on it.
Great news, Mr. President. Based on your allegations, we took Sam Nelson into custody, and within a half hour, he confessed to everything. You're not going to believe this, but the guy's a nutcase. We taped the confession. Let me play it for you.
I love Jackie. I hated Jack because his infidelity hurt Jackie so much. I only wanted her to be happy. I know that she'd be happier without Jack. Maybe she would even be with me. She would even come to care for me. Once she saw how much I love her, how I am completely devoted to her, I knew that I had to get rid of Jack. So I looked in the FBI files and found my killer. I can't believe that damn camel screwed everything up. Don't get me started! Where was I? Oh yes! This is the good part. I planned the trip to Dallas. It would have worked. What was the point of all my meticulous planning? All those details.
Can you believe that guy? He seemed so normal. Anyway, I've got a lot of paperwork to do on this one. Good day, sir.
Congratulations, Mr. President. You did it. Your undercover work put the right man behind bars. At least one of the right men. He's sitting in a jail cell right now. The word is that he's waiting for Jackie to visit him. What a nutcase. All the other suspects have been cleared except the camel, who hasn't been found. A man matching his description was spotted in an airport in Buenos Aires not too long ago. I'm afraid this may be one mercenary that's never captured.
That's okay. At least we got rid of the real problem. Nelson. He must be deranged. I can't believe I let that madman advise me on important issues.
I was thinking that as long as the people are so excited about your expert investigative accomplishments, you might as well indulge them a little. Why not hold a press conference where you answer some questions about the whole thing? I think it could really increase your popularity. What do you say?
No way, Bobby. I've had enough of this investigation to last me a lifetime. Besides, I really don't want to amplify the fact that one of my chief advisors was mentally unstable, if you know what I mean.
You may be right. Anyway, I think you did a terrific job figuring this one out. Well, I'll let you get back to work.
Hello, Mr. President. How are you today?
Fine, Ross. What's up?
I'm here to discuss your campaign finances.
Great. What do I need to do?
Well, you need to determine whether you want to adjust your advertising budget. We're coming up on some important primaries, so you'll probably want to increase your spending. Likewise, if you want to adjust the amounts you've allocated to straw polls or security, you can do that too.
All right, Ross. I'm finished.
Goodbye, Mr. President.
Mr. President, the civil rights leaders are here to see you. I'm sending in Mr. Mel Newlin and Mr. Jeffrey Irwin.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. We appreciate your taking the time to speak with us today.
Yes, well, let's get started, shall we?
Mr. President, we are here to discuss the passage of the Civil Rights Bill. We feel that it is very important that you stand behind this bill. Can we count on you to show the members of Congress the right road?
Mr. Newland, I will do everything I can to help this bill get through Congress.
I can't ask for more than that.
We value your support, Mr. President. We think this is going to be a tough fight.
Yes, well, thank you for stopping by, gentlemen.
Goodbye, Mr. President.
Have a good evening, Mr. President.
Good to see you, Mr. President. Let me get right to the point. As you know, we have been assisting the South Vietnamese in surgical strikes against the North.
Yes, and we have been successful in keeping news of these operations out of the media. It's important for that to continue.
I see no problem with that, sir. If I may continue, we need your approval for an upcoming operation. We're planning to hit communist radar installations on a series of islands off the North Vietnamese coast in the Tonkin Gulf.
Who would be involved, Jim, and for what purpose?
The operation would serve two purposes. First, if the South Vietnamese patrol boats are detected as they approach the island, they will activate the station's radar and sonar, allowing our destroyers in the Gulf to study their electronic signatures. If they are not detected and the operation succeed, we should be able to take out a few of the stations.
This is a South Vietnamese operation?
Yes, sir. South Vietnamese commandos trained by Navy SEALs. 2 U.S. advisors will accompany the mission.
What are the risks, Jim?
It's possible, but unlikely, that the operation would fail. We could lose the team and the advisors in a worst-case scenario.
Very well. Go ahead, Jim. I want to report on the mission as soon as possible.
Thank you, sir. I'll keep you informed.
Mr. President,
You've got to be kidding me, Bobby. Haven't I proved that I'm well enough? I survived a shooting, for God's sake.
I know. They're willing to say anything to win this election. But I think it's more important to counter these rumors. You've got to make the people believe that you're healthy. Don't you agree?
You're absolutely right, Bobby. What do you suggest I do?
Why don't you have a photographer follow you on a walk in the country with Jackie and the kids? Make it look like you've gone on a long walk. That'll give the appearance of stamina. Or you could have the press cover a family game of football. You know how they love that stuff. That'll make you seem like you're full of energy, raring to go. What do you want to do?
I think the family football game is brilliant, Bobby. Can you have that set up for me?
Of course, I'll get right on it. We'll make the Republicans look like fools for even bringing this up.
Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate it. I'll see you later.
Mr. President, I just heard about another Negro demonstration. This one's in Chicago.
Tell me about it, Bobby.
Well, they're calling it a hunger march. They're protesting against high unemployment among the Negro community and insufficient welfare.
How big is this demonstration?
I haven't got definite figures yet, but I think about 200 people are involved. There may be more. Do you want to give the press a comment?
Yes. Tell the press that I'm aware of the situation in Chicago and that I'm working on the civil rights legislation in an effort to improve the Negro's position in our society. How does that sound to you?
Sounds fine. You might want to play up the fact that the bill is out of committee and will be voted on by the House pretty soon. What do you think?
You're right. Put something in my statement about that too.
Okay. I'll get the ball rolling on this one. Goodbye.
Mr. President, the
The NEA, huh? What do they want?
The NEA says that this country needs higher wages for educators and more money for better schools. Basically, they want to know if you support their agenda.
This is a pretty powerful group, Mr. President. Having them on your side can mean a lot of votes come November. Then again, more money for schools and teachers' salaries has to come from somewhere. It's a tough choice. What do you think? Do you want to support their agenda?
Yes, I support their ideas. Fred, let the NEA know that I'm behind them 100%.
I'll get right on that, Mr. President.
Good. Thanks, Fred. That's all I have time for now. Thanks for your time.
Sir, I have the report on that covert radar installation raid in the Tonkin Gulf you approved.
Go ahead, Jim.
The South Vietnamese patrol boats were detected by radar approaching the island, sir. We couldn't get close enough to land the commandos carrying the explosives.
You told me if that happened, our carriers would be able to collect information on the radar installations. Did they?
Yes, they did. We're a bit smarter now about how they use radar.
There's been no word of our involvement in the domestic media. What about overseas?
We're completely black on this one. No problem.
Good. Thanks for the report.
Congratulations,
Speaking of that vote, Mr. President, I've given it a great deal of thought, and of the 217 votes you need to win in the House, I think you've got about 200 right now, and there are a number of undecided members. As a result, I believe it's necessary for you to use your power to win over some of those congressmen who might vote against the bill. I've got a short list of men who I believe are of paramount importance on this issue. Would you like me to go over that list with you?
Yes, Walter. I'd like to hear your suggestions.
The first man on my list is Representative Ronald Wyatt of Connecticut. Right now he's a fence-sitter. I think that a call from you, sir, could bring him over to our side, and he might bring some other undecided voters with him. Second, I think Gilbert Ornelas is someone you should consider speaking with. I know we've discussed him a great deal in the past, but he's so damn powerful he can't be ignored. Although he probably won't come out in favor of the bill himself, I think he would be willing to privately influence others to vote for it. Now, the third man on my list is Leonard Ryan of Virginia.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Walt, but isn't Ryan resolutely anti-civil rights?
He has been fairly unbending in his position against civil rights in the past, Paul, but I believe he could be persuaded to see the value of this bill, or at least convinced that its passage is inevitable, so he might as well join the winning team. Besides, imagine the amount of votes he could bring with him. All those Southern gentlemen on the Hill stick together. If we get him on our side, we're assured victory. So that's it, Mr. President. Ronald Wyatt, Gilbert Ornelas, or Leonard Ryan. Who would you like to speak with?
I think Congressman Ornelas is the man to speak with.
I'll set up a time for you to speak with him, sir.
Now that we've got that all worked out, I'd say that we're through. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. President,
why do the generals think we need more advisors?
they feel the increase is necessary to counter the vast amounts of hardware flowing from the north down the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Can you elaborate on that?
The Vietnamese economy is based on agriculture, sir, with very little industry. Conventional warfare seeks to topple the economy, but a nation of farms and farmers cannot be targeted effectively.
Hence the strategy of concentrating on the trail.
Exactly, sir. But the trail is proving more difficult to manage than anyone had anticipated. Arms and personnel are moving south down the trail at an alarming rate. I've heard estimates anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 men and women each month, all carrying mortars and AK-47s.
Fred, what do you think?
We're riding a fine line with public opinion. If we get in too deep, we risk alienating the voters. If we don't, we feel the heat for being soft on communism. What kind of numbers are we talking about?
Well, the Joint Chiefs would like to step up our commitment by 20,000 advisors.
That's a lot of American boys on Asian soil, Paul.
The final numbers are your decision, sir. I could have the Joint Chiefs prepare a memo for your approval. You can change the numbers then if you'd like.
All right, Paul. Get me something in writing. If that's all, I need to move on.
Mr. President, Congressman Ornelas is on line 1.
Gilbert, Jack Kennedy. How are you today?
I'm very well, Mr. President.
I'm glad to hear that, Gilbert.
President Kennedy, is there something on your mind?
I know that as a representative of the great state of Mississippi, you would be unable to cast a vote in favor of the Civil Rights Bill. However, as an influential congressman, you would be able to encourage others to vote for the bill.
I see. Well, I think that might be possible, Mr. President, but I would be unable to guarantee my support at this time. I can only agree to think about your suggestion. Is that acceptable to you?
Gilbert, I really need your assurances now. I have to know that you're with me on this one.
I'm afraid I can't do that. I need to give this some further thought.
Damn it, Gilbert, I haven't got time. Are you with me or not?
No need to get so upset, Mr. President. I'm sure we could work something out like gentlemen. Now, I'll give you my word that I will do my best to satisfy your request, and we'll leave it at that, all right?
Fine. I'll speak with you later, Gilbert. Goodbye.
Mr. President?
De facto segregation? Haven't we got enough to deal with trying to end state-mandated segregation in the South? Now Negroes have got to complain about unintentional segregation in northern cities?
Arthur, you know as well as I do that you don't need laws to create racial separation. Social and economic conditions can do that for you. Just think about it. The fact that Negroes can only afford to live in certain parts of the city creates racial imbalance in the schools. That's what de facto segregation is all about. Even without forced segregation, whites and Negroes are isolated from each other.
I'd like to hear more about this boycott.
Well, sir, some people are estimating as many as 200,000 students in Chicago alone may be absent from school for a day. With Boston and Cincinnati added to that, this thing could be huge. I think you should acknowledge this activity by phoning some of the boycott leaders. It's like that supportive phone call you made to Coretta King when Martin Luther King was in jail. That went over like gangbusters in the Negro community.
That sounds like a good idea, Bobby. With a few calls, I can demonstrate my compassion for the situation. Let's do it.
All right, Mr. President. I'll have those calls set up for you. That's all we have to discuss for now.
Good. I'll speak with you later, gentlemen.
Hello, Mr. President. I've just spoken with the advertising agency, and we've decided that it's time for you to have a new television commercial. The ones you've been running up till now have been great, but you need something fresh.
What have you got in mind, Ross?
There are a few different types of commercials to choose from. The kind we've been running so far are character boost commercials. They basically say how great you are, how great your family is, and how great the country is.
I get the idea.
Character boost makes for a nice commercial, but I think it's time for something different. You might want to consider using an issue-oriented commercial. You can either extol your position on an issue or criticize Buckman's position on that issue.
Do I have any other choices?
Yes. Another option is to directly attack Buckman's character or abilities. That might not be easy with Buckman. The guy's an excellent statesman with an impeccable record. So those are your choices. What kind of commercial would you like to make? Another character boost, positive issue-oriented, negative issue-oriented, or character attack?
I'd like to make a positive issue-oriented ad, Ross. Buckman may be a great statesman, but I'm better.
All right, Mr. President. I'll get back to the advertising agency and we'll get your new commercial underway. Goodbye, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I need to take a few moments of your time to review a memorandum I placed in the file on your desk.
All right, Sean. What's the issue?
Setting the number of advisors to be deployed in Vietnam. Since you decided to increase the number of advisors, we just need a final number. Defense has included a recommendation, but you can change it.
That should do it, Sean. Thanks.
I'll make sure it gets to defense, Mr. President.
Mr. President, poverty.
All right, Bobby. Give me some details on the issue.
Some people are under the impression that most of the poor citizens of this country are either stupid or lazy. I disagree with that assessment. I think that most of those individuals have not had the same advantages as the rest of us. Do you agree with me?
Of course, Bobby.
Well then, don't you think it's incumbent upon the federal government to create opportunities for the poor?
Yes, I do. Every American citizen deserves the opportunity to develop his talents to the fullest, and it's the federal government's job to help that process along when necessary.
That's the kind of thing the voting public needs to hear. I'd like to issue a press statement to that effect. Is that acceptable to you, Mr. President?
Yes, Fred. I can always use good press coverage. Now, if that's all we have to talk about, we can all get back to work.
Jack, I've just received word of a demonstration at the University of California's Berkeley campus.
What's the issue?
Vietnam. A small but vocal group of students is protesting our decision to send more advisors over there. They think America should quit fighting other countries' wars.
Well, they have the right to a peaceful demonstration. Too bad they don't understand that fighting other countries' wars is what won us that right.
Yes, Jack, it's a bit disturbing. Do you want to issue any statement on the protest?
Yes. Have Fred put something together questioning their patriotism.
All right, Jack. I'll speak with you later.
The civil rights legislation, Mr. President. Having won in the House of Representatives, the bill is now in the Senate. And, as you know, the first hurdle there is for the Senate to agree to make the bill its pending business, which calls it up for formal debate. That pending business vote is coming up soon, and it looks like it's going to be a close one.
He's right about that, Mr. President. There's a block of 19 Southern senators who are fiercely opposed to this bill, and they've been stalling the pending business vote. In addition to the Southern bloc, there are other segregationists in the Senate, and some senators just haven't made up their minds yet. This is going to be tough.
Do you have any recommendations for people that I should speak with?
Mr. President, you should speak with Victor Forbes. He's for this bill, and I believe he can persuade other senators to vote your way.
Josephine Edwards is also for this bill, and she's much more powerful than Forbes. She's the senator you should speak with, Mr. President.
Why don't you speak with Matthew Reynolds? He's undecided right now, but I think you could persuade him to vote your way. And he could bring some of the other undecided votes with him.
I'll speak with Senator Edwards. Can you set that up for me, Fred?
Of course, Mr. President.
Thank you, Fred. This meeting is adjourned, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Mr. President, I need you to work out your campaign travel itinerary. We need to plan through to the Democratic Convention, which is in Atlantic City at the end of August.
Okay, Ross. Now I'm booked through until the convention. It's Atlantic City or bust.
Atlantic City, here we come. Have a good day, sir.
Mr. President, Senator Edwards is here to see you.
Hello, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to see you again.
The pleasure is all mine, Josephine. How have you been?
Very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm just fine, thanks. Josephine, I'd like you to help me convince other members of the Senate to vote for the Civil Rights Bill. With the pending business vote just around the corner, I'd like to be sure that I'll have enough supporters.
I understand completely, sir. There are some senators who owe me a favor or two. I'm sure that I can muster up a number of supporters for this next vote.
Thanks, Josephine. I knew that I could count on you. Thanks for coming by today. Goodbye.
Goodbye, sir.
Mr. President, I'd like to update you on the latest public opinion data on Vietnam.
Go ahead.
The most interesting news is that more voters are expressing an opinion on the Vietnam issue. It seems that the country is starting to awaken to what is going on over there.
Any reason for that?
I think your decision to increase the number of advisors raised the public's awareness level a bit.
Let's hope they don't get overly concerned about it. Thanks for the update.
You're welcome, sir.
Great news, Mr. President. The Senate has made the Civil Rights Bill its pending business. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome, sir. Well, I'll let you enjoy your victory in peace. Goodbye.
Jim, you wanted to discuss an operation in Vietnam?
Yes, sir. Air America is a subsidiary of the CIA that serves our air transport needs. We want to use Air America to drop South Vietnamese commandos into the jungles to the north. They will sabotage the bridges on the Ho Chi Minh Trail at Quai Son.
Why do we need to use Air America? Why can't the South Vietnamese execute this mission on their own?
The South Vietnamese have demonstrated time and again that they cannot execute air missions without being detected.
Will U.S. personnel participate on the ground, Jim?
No, sir. The CIA plans the operation, but no American will be directly involved with the sabotage effort.
Sir, if the bridges open, the trail will be extended to within 25 miles of Da Nang and to within 200 miles of Saigon. The Communists will increase their capacity to move supplies tenfold.
Okay, Jim. You've got the green light. But keep me informed.
Yes, sir. I'm here to brief you on the results of the bridge raid at Khe Sanh.
Fire away, Jim.
Sir, the operation went without a hitch. The South Vietnamese commandos destroyed 3 of the 4 bridges. Only the northernmost bridge is still standing. Traffic on the trail has slowed to foot traffic again.
Any word on how Hanoi might react?
Our sources have not confirmed anything yet, but they believe that the communists will start rebuilding the bridges within 2 weeks.
Tenacious, aren't they? All right, gentlemen, let's move on. Keep me posted on any new developments.
Hello, everyone. Well, Mr. President, the Southern Bloc of Senators is using delaying tactics on the civil rights legislation. They've started making long-winded speeches about everything under the sun. I'm not worried, though. This filibuster won't last. They're just trying to make a point. I think they'll talk themselves out.
I don't know about that, Bobby. Those senators seem pretty serious about using their right of unlimited debate to keep this legislation from ever getting voted on. Mr. President, you might want to nip this in the bud by speaking with some influential senators. How do you feel about this filibuster?
I'm rather concerned about it. Walter, who do you suggest I speak with?
I think you should speak with Josephine Edwards or Victor Forbes. They're both behind this bill 100%, and I think either one of them could help move this filibuster along.
Why don't you speak with Wade Jackson, the senator from Utah? I know that he's not in favor of this bill, but I heard that he's sure it's going to fail when Senate votes on it. Why not encourage him to speed the process by helping to end the filibuster? The two of you have opposite goals, but it seems to me they'd both be served by ending the debate. Who would you like to speak with, Mr. President?
I'll speak with Senator Edwards.
I'll set that up for you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Fred. That will be all, gentlemen.
It looks like the Republican...
I know what you mean, Fred. Decker's views are so conservative, he alienates a lot of people in his own party. But I guess the Republican Party is falling prey to extremism.
Talk about extremism. At the Republican convention, they couldn't even pass a measure denouncing the John Birch Society. That's one of the most fanatical right-wing organizations I can think of, and they support it. Next time, they'll probably have the KKK give the nominating speech.
Could you just imagine that?
This all works in our favor. Defeating Decker will be easy. All the racists can vote for him, and everybody else can vote for me.
That's right. We just have to get past the Democratic convention. Then you should have this election in the bag.
I hope so. Thanks for the update, everyone. I'll speak with you later.
Mr. President, Senator Edwards is here to see you.
Hello, Mr. President. It's nice to see you.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Josephine. How's George? I heard he had to have an operation on his knee.
Yes, he did. An old football injury. Anyway, he's doing just fine now. I'll tell him that you asked about him.
Josephine, the reason that I asked you to come by today is that I'm concerned about this filibuster. Is there anything you can do to move this thing along?
I understand your concern, sir, and of course I want to help you in any way I can, but I think these senators will tire themselves out, don't you?
I'm afraid I don't, Josephine. These guys are capable of extreme tactics. I think that if they get this filibuster going too long, it will only gain momentum. I'd like you to intervene.
As you know, Mr. President, if even one senator feels like filibustering, he can do so effectively. So I'm not exactly sure what I can do, but I'll try my best.
That's all I can ask. Thanks, Josephine. Have a good day.
Goodbye, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we have confirmed reports of 2 separate attacks on 2 of our destroyers operating in the Tonkin Gulf.
Let's hear about it, Paul.
The USS Maddox was on a surveillance mission about 6 miles off the North Vietnamese coast when it was attacked by 3 North Vietnamese patrol boats. 3 torpedoes were launched from the patrol boats as well as significant small arms fire. 2 torpedoes missed. The third struck the Maddox but didn't detonate. There were no U.S. casualties.
Did the Maddox in any way provoke the attacks, Paul?
The facts of the incident are still being collected, but it doesn't appear so. South Vietnamese patrol boats were engaged in a raid on the coast, sir. Although the Maddox was aware of the operation, she had no part in it.
Okay, go on.
The Maddox called for air support from the Ticonderoga. 4 Crusaders responded, crippling 2 boats. The Maddox hit the third. None of the 3 were sunk, and the Maddox retreated further into international waters.
Was the Maddox in international waters at the time of the incident, Paul?
Vietnam has never specified its limit. The standard demarcation is 3 miles, sir, although China observes a 12-mile limit.
They'll undoubtedly argue that the attack was justified by a trespass. What sort of operation was the Maddox engaged in?
Her crew was gathering North Vietnamese radar and sonar intelligence.
You mentioned there were 2 attacks.
The second incident occurred in darkness. There are some questions as to whether anything actually happened at all. Although both the Maddox and the Turner Joy fired, we have no confirmed sightings of enemy patrol boats.
All right, gentlemen. Give me our options.
Sir, this is the opportunity we have been looking for to justify an expansion of our role in South Vietnam.
That's right, sir. They fired the first shot.
Paul, it's time to send combat troops over there. We'll need congressional approval for that. Pull together a proposal.
Right away, sir.
Thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Mr. President, I'd like to update you on the public's opinion of your reaction to the incident in the Tonkin Gulf.
How's it look?
Well, sir, the majority of America is behind you. Most people see sending combat troops to Vietnam as the right thing to do. They think we should stay in there and fight it out.
That's great. Do you think Congress is behind it?
I can't say for sure. I'm just letting you know how it's perceived by America. But you never know with congressmen. They've all got their own agendas.
Thanks for the update, Bobby. I'll see you later.
Mr. President, Senator Lewis Quigley is here to see you.
Hello, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to see you again. How's your lovely wife?
She's as wonderful as ever, Lewis. Thank you for asking. How's your golf game these days?
Well, I can't complain, Mr. President, but I can't brag about it either.
What can I do for you today, Lewis?
I'd like to discuss the so-called civil rights movement. As you can imagine, those of us from Alabama are less than anxious to have this legislation passed.
I understand how you feel, Lewis. However, there are a great many people who feel that the time has come for this bill.
Well, the time may have come, but Southern traditions and values have not changed. I'm sure you are aware that this bill will affect a great many people, white and colored, in ways that they will not like, in ways that they are not comfortable with. A colored boy needs to understand his place in society the same way a white man needs to. People are happier when boundaries are clear. Don't you agree?
I'm afraid I don't, Louis. I can't condone the judging of a man by the color of his skin. That is too great an injustice to continue, just for tradition's sake.
Well, you may scoff at traditions, my good man, but there are a great many American citizens who appreciate the value of traditions. And I'm afraid that will become quite clear when the Senate votes on your little bill. You'd better be sure of your convictions, Mr. President, because this fight will not be an easy one.
You know I always enjoy a good fight, Louis. Thank you for coming by today. Goodbye.
Good day, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I thought you'd like to hear the latest public opinion numbers on Vietnam.
Yes, I'm very concerned with that right now.
The recent events in the Tonkin Gulf have galvanized public opinion. They are responding with the typical cowboy mentality. Over 75% of the voters are behind your decision to send combat troops to Vietnam.
Good to hear. We're going to defeat the communists. Thanks, Carolyn.
You're welcome, sir.
Chief, I need you to sign off on a memorandum I left in your file folder.
What's it about, Eric?
The Pentagon needs a definitive number on how many combat troops you want to commit to Vietnam. The recommendation is in the memo.
There. I've made my decision, Eric. Send it through, and we'll work on getting congressional approval.
I'll do it, sir.
Mr. President, there's been an...
Fred, I'd like to hear some more about this.
Wallace is famous for his staunch anti-civil rights rhetoric. Last year in his inaugural address as governor, he said, quote, "Segregation today, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever." As you know, Mr. President, it was the day Wallace physically tried to keep those 2 Negro students from enrolling at the University of Alabama that you announced you would introduce a civil rights bill to Congress. With a Senate vote on the civil rights bill coming up, people are looking to you for some reaction to this latest occurrence.
What do you recommend?
You could release a statement to the press denouncing this violence.
Or I could go to Alabama and speak with some of the Negro leaders there. That usually helps the situation, and it won't take away from the Senate vote.
That sounds like the best alternative, Bobby. Why don't you do that?
Certainly, Mr. President. I'll make arrangements to leave tonight.
Thanks, Bobby. I'll speak with you gentlemen later.
Mr. President.
Okay, let's go about this the simple way. Fred, who is likely to hold sway over the congressman?
I'd talk to Senator Quigley first, sir. He's sympathetic to our cause and he has the respect of the younger members.
I don't know about Quigley, sir. He left us standing at the altar with the tax bill.
Yes, he did. And I don't know if we can take that chance now. Who else?
There's Senator Epler. He's more of a political wild card, but he can round up the votes, no doubt about it.
Sir, I don't see why we couldn't talk to both.
Good point, Fred. Set it up, will you?
Of course, Mr. President.
Mr. President, 2 weeks ago, the Attorney General asked me to study the current state of the civil rights movement, and I've given him a full report on my findings. Would you like me to give you the highlights?
Yes, Jennifer. I'm interested in hearing what you've learned.
The most obvious issue is the civil rights legislation. As you can imagine, the Negro community is very excited about the Senate vote that's coming up. They're confident about that vote, too. The people I spoke with indicated that they were certain the bill would be made into law.
That's very interesting. Please continue.
Well, despite the fact that the Civil Rights Bill is succeeding in Congress, there are an increasing number of Negroes who have become disillusioned with the more moderate civil rights organizations and leaders. They are harboring a lot of anger about what they consider to be a lack of success by these organizations. I'm afraid we could see a marked increase in violence from them if the bill fails in the Senate.
Please, go on.
The situation in the southern states has become almost intolerable. The whites feel so threatened by the success of the legislation that they've generally made life miserable for the Negroes. The whites' attitude seems to be that you may get this bill made into law, but you're going to have a tough time enforcing it.
I appreciate the update, Jennifer. That'll be enough. Thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. I'll let you get back to what you were doing.
Well, Mr. President.
I'm very confident, Bobby. I don't think Sharp has a chance.
I couldn't agree more. I know that you'll leave Atlantic City looking forward to a November victory.
You're going to be there with me, aren't you?
Of course. There's going to be a party at the Atlantic City Regency Hotel, and we've set it up so that you've got a private hotel suite, too. That way you can watch the television broadcast away from the crowds if you'd like.
That sounds perfect, Bobby. Look, I've got a lot to do before then, so I'll see you later, okay?
Yeah, I'll see you later. Mr. President, we've got a problem.
That's the Mississippi Summer Project, right?
Yes, it's also referred to as Freedom Summer, and it isn't very popular among whites in Mississippi. They look upon these students coming in from the north as invaders and agitators. The 3 missing men work for CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, and they haven't been seen in 2 days. I've just been informed that this story is going to be on the front page of the New York Times tomorrow. The whole country is going to know about this. I think you should take some action.
What's the right thing to do?
You have a few options. 1, you can meet with the parents of the missing workers. That would send a message of concern and compassion to the entire country. 2, I can go to Mississippi and meet with the leaders of Freedom Summer. That would also send a message of concern.
Third, you can have Van Owen set up a new FBI office in Mississippi to investigate the disappearance. Considering Van Owen's personal feelings toward the civil rights movement, that could be tough, but it would send a message of concern and action. What do you think?
I think I should meet with the parents. That will look good in the papers and won't jeopardize the Senate vote that's coming up on the Civil Rights Bill.
I'll have that meeting set up as soon as possible. I'll speak with you later.
President Kennedy has just received enough votes to be nominated to a second term by the Democratic Party. The president will, of course, make his official acceptance speech tomorrow night as scheduled. The crowd in this Atlantic City convention.
Did you listen to that crowd? They love you. I've never seen a Democratic convention this frenzied. Congratulations, Jack. You did it.
Congratulations again on gaining the nomination, Mr. President. Your hard work on the campaign trail is paying off.
Thank you, Ross. I get the feeling that you're here to discuss more of the campaign trail.
That's right, sir. You've got to decide what you want to say from now until 2 weeks before the election. This is one of the most important times of the campaign, so I've focused a lot of attention on the states with the most electoral votes.
All right, Ross, I'm finished.
Thanks for your time, sir. I'll talk to you again soon.
Mr. President, we've got a problem in New York City. Negroes are rioting in Harlem. Apparently, the whole thing started over the shooting of a 15-year-old Negro boy by an off-duty police officer.
Somehow, I don't think this is going to increase my chances of getting the Senate to pass the Civil Rights Bill. Give me the details, Bobby.
It's pretty ugly between 125th Street and 139th Street. They're looting stores, breaking windows, and damaging property. There are also people throwing bottles and bricks at the police from the rooftops. The police are mostly firing warning shots, but some of them are shooting at the rooftops as well. What do you think we should do?
It sounds as if this situation is out of control. We'd better send in the National Guard. We can't afford to have this situation escalate. I don't want this to spread to other cities. Get the Guard in there to restore some order.
Certainly, Mr. President. I'll get right on it. Mr. President, thanks to a
Who's responsible for the murders?
We know the Klan is involved in this. We're just gonna have a tough time proving it. You know the state of Mississippi isn't going to charge anyone with murder on this one, so we're going to have to get indictments on federal civil rights charges. As always, a possible conviction is a long way off.
Thanks for the update, Bobby. I'll speak with you later.
Mr. President, Senator Lewis Quigley is here to see you.
Welcome, Senator. Thanks for coming over.
Well, thank you, sir. What can I do for you?
How have you been? How's your wife and family?
They're fine, sir. But you didn't ask me here for idle family chit-chat. So what can I do for you?
Senator, I'm turning to you because I need someone who can really make things happen. You see, I want to send combat troops into Vietnam, and I need support from men of your caliber.
That's a tall order, Mr. President. What's going on?
As you know, we have suffered several terrorist attacks on U.S. installations in Saigon, and now the communists are firing torpedoes at American ships in the Tonkin Gulf.
It seems to me that expanding our role in Vietnam will only bring more of those incidents. Why increase our involvement?
If we are to have any hope of stopping the communists in Vietnam, a country our strategists feel is essential to our ability to defend democratic governments in Asia, we must take an active role in the fight.
I see. I think you can count on my support.
Thank you, Senator Quigley. I appreciate your support.
Good day, sir.
Senator Epler is on line 1, Mr. President.
Hello, Senator Epler. This is Jack Kennedy. How are things on the Hill?
Just fine, Mr. President.
How's the family? Everybody healthy?
We're all doing quite well. Now, if I may be so bold, I'd like to get to the point of this call.
Senator, I called to ask for your support on the Tonkin Gulf resolution. I'm seeking greater powers to respond militarily to communist aggression in Vietnam.
I'm familiar with the document, Mr. President. You want to send combat troops into Vietnam.
Yes, that's right.
Mr. President, as you know, I am sympathetic to your cause, but I'm having difficulty with the potential loss of American lives. I'm afraid I won't be able to support your decision.
I don't think I've made myself clear, Henry. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. I want your support on this.
I see. Well, I'll have to give it some thought. Goodbye, Mr. President.
Give it some serious thought, Senator. Goodbye.
Mr. President, the Secret Service has received reports that there will be another attempt on your life in California. I strongly suggest that you don't go on your campaign tour there. What do you want to do?
I'm definitely not going. There's no point in risking my life again. Thanks for the information.
Of course, sir. That's what I'm here for.
Hello, everyone. I know we need to discuss the civil rights legislation, so let's get started.
Mr. President, the Senate vote on that bill is coming up. I've been speaking with various senators from both parties, and I think you've got enough votes to win, but it'll be close. If you're willing to twist a few arms, you could probably ensure victory.
Bobby's right, Mr. President. Why don't you speak with Senator Edwards? She's been very helpful in the past, and she's got enough clout to pick up a few more votes.
I think you should deal with the minority leader, Henry Epler. Even though Democrats make up 67% of the Senate, you can't rely solely on them. For this vote, you're going to need bipartisan support. I think Epler, the Senate Republican leader, could provide some important votes. But it's up to you.
I'll speak with Senator Edwards. I think she can provide me with the necessary votes to ensure victory.
I'd be happy to set that up for you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your time, gentlemen. That will be all.
Mr. President, Senator Edwards is here to see you.
Hello, Mr. President. I figure you're tallying up your votes for the civil rights vote in the Senate. How does it look?
It looks good so far, Josephine. My sources tell me I've got enough to win, but that it's going to be close. That's why I asked you to come by today. I'd like you to employ your best persuasive powers to help me secure some vote.
I'll do my best, Mr. President, but I think I've already done all the persuading I can.
I'm sure you have, Josephine. It's just that this is the final battle, and it's all or nothing. I'd really appreciate it if you would give it all you've got.
Of course, Mr. President. I'll call in every marker I have, and a few I don't.
Thanks, and I'll speak with you after we win this one.
Jack, the vote on sending...
How do we do?
We won! Congress approved the measure.
I thought it would pass. We did a good job getting the key votes to our side. Epler and Quigley put us over the top.
It's quite a victory. You can ride this one all the way to the election.
I hope that's the case. If we can keep casualties down between now and then, we should do all right.
It will take some time for the military to ramp up the forces. I don't foresee a problem.
Well, a land war in Asia is not a rosy prospect in any case. I hope defense is on the mark when they tell me we can win this thing in 18 months.
I hope so too. I've got to get back. Congratulations, Jack.
Mr. President, Ross Williams is on line 2.
Great news, Mr. President. Your success in Congress with the combat issue has given you a huge boost in the polls. I think this is going to lock up the election for you.
That's great to hear, Ross. I don't want to get overconfident, though.
Oh, enjoy it, Mr. President. You're a sure thing. I've got to run tons of last-minute preparations before the election. I'll speak with you soon, and congratulations on the congressional victory.
Thanks. Goodbye, Ross. Honored guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, today we have proven, once again, that Americans do not step away from the right path just because it is a difficult path. Today, we have taken further steps in our commitment to freedom. Today, we have shown that there is no room in our country for racial intolerance. Today, we have become a better nation. As I sign this bill, I am reminded of the principle that this country was founded on. All men are created equal.
Terrific speech, Mr.
It's been a long struggle, but it's been worth it.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Excellent job. Fantastic speech, sir.
It's a proud day for all Americans.
Mr. President, we need to update your campaign budget. We've had a huge influx of funds since the convention, as we had expected. Now, with the election so close, you'll probably want to conduct a media blitz and step up security. But, of course, it's up to you.
Okay, Ross. I've worked everything out. Thanks for coming by.
You're welcome, sir. Goodbye. Mr. President, we've got a situation that you need to hear about.
What is it, Sean?
The World War Veterans Committee is going to hold a rally to show their support for your decision to send combat troops to Vietnam. They want to send a message to America that they are behind you.
It's not surprising they're behind a decision that leads to battle, is it?
I recommend that we capitalize on this and issue a statement supporting the Veterans Rally.
Good idea. Go ahead and do it.
I'll get right on it. Mr. President, there's been some developments in Russia. You're wanted in the cabinet room right away.
Thanks, Sean. I'm on my way.
Mr. President.
Why do you think he was ousted?
There are two main reasons. First, there's been considerable opposition to Levchenko's plan to shift some of his country's economic resources from heavy industry and armaments to consumer goods. Second, Communist China has asked for his removal for months because Levchenko's been trying to have China suspended from the world communist movement.
Who's in charge now?
It's a little unclear right now who the top man is exactly, but there are two men in the forefront. Ivan Borzenko has been named the first secretary of the Communist Party, and Leonid Karamazov is the new Soviet premier. The position of first secretary is more powerful, so I'd say Borzenko is the most prominent figure in the new leadership.
Is there anything else you can tell me?
There is one last thing, Mr. President. The Soviet ambassador to the U.S. has expressed that his government will continue a policy of peaceful coexistence with us. Would you like to respond to his communication?
Oh, yes, of course. Tell him that I want to continue to work toward world peace or something like that. Use your best judgment.
Certainly, sir.
Thanks, Arthur. This meeting is adjourned.
Well, this is it, Mr. President. This is the last time you're going to make campaign speech plans. You've only got 2 more weeks before the election. What do you want to say?
That's all set, Ross. Thanks for all your hard work during this campaign. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Mr. President. I'm looking forward to your victory speech on November 3rd. I'm sure this election is going to be a landslide.
That's what I'd like to hear. I'll speak with you later, Ross.
Have a good day, Mr. President.
Hi, Jack. Just thought I'd drop by to give you a few words of encouragement for the last leg of the race. How are you holding up?
I'm doing well, Bobby. I feel confident. I know that I've done everything I can to win this election. And next week, we'll know how this whole thing turns out.
I already know how this whole thing turns out. 4 more years.
I hope you're right, Bobby. I really hope you're right.
Are you kidding? I know I'm right. Now I've got to go, but you know I'll be there to celebrate your victory on election night.
Thanks, Bobby. Goodbye.
we have the latest from Vietnam.
Let's hear it, Paul.
Thank you, sir. We have started an intensive military campaign designed to break the resolve of the Communists to wage war in Vietnam.
What, specifically does that entail?
We're running daily airstrikes up and down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, as well as constant harassment of military staging areas north of Hue. We've also stepped up surveillance along the coast.
What results are you getting?
It's too early to gauge progress towards our long-term goals. However, the general outlook is good.
Good to hear, General. Keep me informed.
Jack, it's still early, but I think this is going to be a landslide.
Another glass of champagne, dear?
President Kennedy is leading Mr. Decker by 11% of the popular vote.
I can't believe this.
Uncle Teddy! Uncle Teddy! Give me a baby.
Well, you know my motto. Vote early and vote often.
President Kennedy has defeated Mr. Decker to win a second term in office.
Jack, you really put it to him in this campaign. The American people have validated your first term. They really love you.
Yay, Daddy!
Congratulations!
I guess I better start thinking about what I'll wear to the inaugural ball.